All right, and now it is time for my favorite segment of the week. This week in Shohei Ohtani news, I'm going to talk about his bat heating up. He is starting to roll. I'm going to talk about why, for Shohei, consistency is key. I also want to talk about how his work behind the scenes is absolutely incredible and needs to be talked about even more. But let's start with his bat heating up. On Sunday, Shohei went deep again for the 9th time of the year. He is starting to roll. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, he's hitting .290. He's got multiple home runs. He hit 2 home runs over the course of this past week. This is when you know Shohei Ohtani is locked in. For everybody listening, for everybody watching, when you watch Shohei Ohtani, when he is hitting home runs to dead center and to left center, that's how you know he is starting to lock in. And what he is doing right now is he's locking in. It has been a lot of fun to watch. He has been rather inconsistent this year at the plate. It almost seemed like there would be games where he'd hit 2 home runs and have a bunch of RBIs and have 3 hits, and then there'd be a couple game stretch where he doesn't get a hit. Now it seems like he's starting to find that consistency a little bit more at the plate. He's driving balls up the middle. He's driving balls the other way instead of all of those. I felt like at the beginning of the year, a couple of times a game, we would see that Shohei would get a good pitch to hit, and he'd hit that chopping rollover to the right side. The second baseman would catch it and throw to first. Now we're not seeing as much of that. Now he's hitting a lot of balls up the middle, a lot of balls hard the other way, and that's how you really know he's heating up. And we saw it again on Sunday. That Sunday home run he hit went over the bushes in center field at Angel Stadium. So center field is already really deep, the deepest part of the ballpark. Then you have these really big trees. Shohei went over the really big trees. I mean, it's remarkable the power this guy has. The power is remarkable. He doesn't even do much. He's not doing this big leg kick anymore. He's just keeping it simple. And the power, the force, the torque that he has at the plate is allowing him to hit balls 450 feet to dead center field. It is remarkable. And for me, I'm just glad to see that Shohei is starting to heat up at the plate. It's been a lot of fun to watch lately, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next week or so we see him really take off those power numbers and hitting 4 home runs in a week. That'd be sick. Next up, I want to talk about how for Shohei consistency is key. Now let's talk about on the pitching side. His consistency is what's made him different this year on the mound. It almost felt like last year, yeah, he obviously was throwing really good, but he would have a bunch of these blow-up games, and he couldn't find the strike zone. And there would be games where it looked like he wouldn't get out of the first inning. This year, the consistency has been key. He's had starts where, sure, he's gone out and he's had no-hit stuff. He's taken a perfect game late into the game. But then he's also had games where, in that first inning, it looks like it's not going to go well. He can't find the strike zone, but you know what? He figures it out. And he has a way of getting through 6 innings and giving up 2 earned runs and striking out 7 guys and throwing a quality start. That was different than what we saw last year. The consistency wasn't there last year. He would have that start where he couldn't find the strike zone and he never really found it. And he wouldn't get out of the first inning. Or he'd really struggle and he'd give up. In those starts where he'd give up 5 or 6 runs last year, this year he's given up 2 runs. And then he's still having those starts where he looks perfect. And he's taking perfect games late into the game. That's been the difference on the pitching side. And in my opinion, Shohei Ohtani could win a Cy Young Award in his career. It could be this year. He's pitching like a Cy Young Award winner. It has been a blast to watch, and the difference this year is the consistency. Shohei Ohtani's average fastball velocity in a start the other night, 98.6 miles an hour. The hardest for any game is hit in his entire career. He threw 8 pitches at 100 miles an hour, the second most, and he's likely done after 94 pitches in 6 innings. It's a 2-2 ball game. So that was the other night. 98.6 average velocity, throwing multiple pitches over 100. That's the thing with Shohei. We had always heard this guy throws 100 miles an hour and he hits a bunch of bombs. Well, over the last couple of years, it's almost seemed like, wow, he touched 100. Well, guess what? Now his average velocity is over 98 miles an hour. He's touching 100 miles an hour. He's throwing 100 miles an hour multiple times in a game. This is a different Shohei we're seeing on the mound this year. This is a more dominant Shohei we're seeing on the mound this year. This is a Cy Young quality Shohei Ohtani we are seeing on the mound this year. It's been a lot of fun to see, and consistency has been key for him there. On the offensive side, consistency is key as well. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than we see with the pitching. The pitching, he has been consistent. Offensively, it hasn't exactly been consistent this year. The last couple of weeks have been much better. But like I said, it seems like there's a lot of outings, a lot of starts, where he'll have 3 hits or 0 hits, which leads to a really good week. If you get 3 hits in 2 days, guess what? You're playing good baseball. You're looking good at the plate. Shohei Ohtani isn't good at the plate. He's elite at the plate. And it looks like he's starting to find that consistency. That's where he becomes dangerous. You remember that stretch he went on last year where it seemed like every single night he was hitting a home run? I think we're close to that. I do. I think we're close to that. He's hit 5 homers in the last couple of weeks, and it looks like he's starting to get on that roll. Since that day that he said, I feel like I'm starting to get there at the plate. That very next day, he hit 2 homers, and since then, he's starting to take off. Consistency is the key for Shohei at the plate, and it has been the key for Shohei on the mound this year. Next up with Shohei, I want to talk about what he does behind the scenes. I do a lot of talking about what he does on the field, the pitcher he is, the hitter he is, and rightfully so, that deserves to be talked about as much as I talk about it. But even more so, it deserves to be talked about what he does behind the scenes, off the field. What he has done off the field is remarkable. I have an episode with Ty France coming up. I was talking to Ty France recently, and he's pitched a couple of times in his career, and I joked with him about it, like, hey, could we potentially be seeing a Shohei Ohtani sort of thing for you? And his response was, no way. Too much work. Now, 1, he doesn't throw 100 miles an hour. But 2, it is true. The work that goes on behind the scenes is remarkable. Even at the college level when I was trying to do this, it was too much work for me. You find yourself cutting corners and trying to do this and trying to do that. Shohei doesn't do it. He doesn't cut corners. He just becomes the best at whatever it is he's doing. I was fortunate enough last year in October to talk to A-Rod and David Ortiz about Shohei Ohtani. And they jokingly said he has to be single to do what he's doing because he has so much time to do it. And they were joking about that, but it is true. What they said and what the point of their message rings true. What he does is just works harder at his craft than I think we have ever seen before. Not to say people aren't working hard, not to say my brother Justin, who's one of the greatest pitchers of all time, isn't working hard, not to say Mike Trout, who's one of the greatest of all time, and his teammate isn't working hard. He's doing that work that they're each doing and combining it to be a pitcher and a hitter. That's what makes it so remarkable. That's what makes it so special. It is special. And it is something we have never seen, the work that he has to put in behind the scenes. And if you're listening, and if you watch what Shohei is doing and on the field and say, wow, that's impressive, multiply it by 1,000,000 and be that impressed. Because what he does off the field is he eats, sleeps, and breathes baseball. And it is an absolute treat and an honor for us to get to watch Shohei Ohtani play baseball. I feel honored that I was born in the same lifetime and get to watch Shohei Ohtani play the game of baseball. That's what it is. That's what it means to the game. That's what he means to me. Lastly, I have to talk about how much fun he is having. It was Cowboy night the other night at the stadium, and on the scoreboard, when Shohei came up to bat, they had him with a cowboy hat on and perhaps the greatest mustache I have ever seen. And it made me wonder, and it makes me ask the question, and if you're watching this, answer this. Should Shohei grow out a mustache? Because it looks great. Imagine Shohei Ohtani walking around with that mustache, hitting 50 bombs in a season and striking out everybody and twirling his mustache as he does it. That would be fantastic. But that does it for this week in Shohei Ohtani news. It really is my favorite segment of the show. Thank you all for listening to This Week in Shohei Ohtani News. Thanks for watching. If you love flipping bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.